Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you to episode number 5, the final episode of my 31 Days of Horror in October. In this episode, I will be showing you everything I watched from October 27th through October 31st, Halloween. Let's have a look. October 27th, 2019, I watched The Legend of Halloween Jack. This movie starts off with a man named Jack Kane who is on trial for murder. The local townspeople want to see justice done, but the arrest wasn't handled properly, so the judge sets him free. Of course, the townspeople want to see justice done, so a group of vigilantes go to Jack's house, drag him out to the cornfield, hang him up like a scarecrow, and then they execute him. 1 year later, Jack is resurrected as a evil, vengeful scarecrow. The basic setup to this storyline is very similar to Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Now, The Legend of Halloween Jack does have a sequel, and I do own it, but I had not seen part 1, so I had to watch this one first. Overall, I thought this movie was pretty decent. It is a low-budget slasher movie, and I feel like a lot of the problems it has is due to budget restraints, so I tried not to judge it too harshly. I do really like the look of the Halloween Jack character. He's pretty cool looking. I can't always understand what he's saying, and a lot of the characters in this movie I didn't really care for, but the movie does have a really good Halloween and October setting. It definitely has the feel of Halloween, so that's really cool. For the most part, I did enjoy this one, and at some point I will be checking out part 2. October 28th, 2019, I watched Zombie Creeping Flesh, or also known as Hell of the Living Dead, or also known as Virus, which I find that title to be pretty interesting, considering how a lot of horror movie fans don't consider virus and infection type movies to be zombie movies. I'm kinda really wondering if people consider this to be a zombie movie. I really enjoy this movie. It is a low budget zombie film, but I do enjoy Bruno Mattei's movies. He has a unique filmmaking style, and I think his movies are very entertaining in my opinion. I could see where a lot of people might consider this to be a low budget ripoff of Dawn of the Dead, and I can kind of understand that. The score to this movie was done by Goblin, who also did Dawn of the Dead, and a lot of the score to this movie seems to be ripped directly from Dawn of the Dead, and that took a little bit of getting used to, but it does seem to fit. There were also some original score pieces used for this one, so I thought that was pretty cool. The zombies in this movie look really awesome, and they definitely look like zombies that could have been in Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, so the zombies look really cool. There's some fantastic blood and gore throughout this movie. There's some really amazing set pieces, but with that being said, there's also some stock footage of a lot of nature shots, which probably only pads the runtime, and it does make the movie feel a little bit odd. But overall, I think this movie is extremely fun. I always watch it in English dubbed, so there's some over-the-top dialogue and at some points really ridiculous dialogue, but I really find this movie to be a lot of fun. October 29th, 2019, I watched The Return of the Vampire. And the first thing I wanted to say about this one is that this one was not put out by Universal, and they did not have the rights to call the vampire Dracula. But with smart filmmaking and smart casting, they cast Bela Lugosi as the vampire, so anyone who sees him on screen will automatically associate him with Dracula. In my opinion, that's some pretty smart filmmaking and pretty smart casting. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. And considering it was released in 1943, it was right in the middle of World War II, so we get a lot of planes flying across the sky, dropping bombs. We see the shattered remains of buildings, so just a lot of really neat stuff to see within a vampire movie. And a lot of the storyline to this one puts me in mind of a Dracula-style storyline, even though technically, as I had mentioned, Bela Lugosi is not really Dracula, but he pretty much is. All we're really missing is Dracula's castle. But we do get some pretty cool graveyard scenes where there's fog that comes across the graveyard, some really cool looking mist. There's some really good set pieces within this movie. And I also thought it was really neat that the vampire had a werewolf servant this time around, and I thought that was really neat. Overall, I thought this movie, it was shot and filmed very well, of course in black and white, and I just thought it was a lot of fun. October 30th, 2019, I watched The Kiss, and I really enjoyed this movie. It has a very interesting storyline, so I'm going to try to break it down as simple as I can. So the storyline for this one is basically about a cursed family who have in their possession a cursed artifact. It's basically like a demon-looking statue. Maybe it's like a talisman, but whoever has possession of this statue ends up being taken over by a parasite. Eventually, this parasite will need a new host, and it is passed along through a kiss. Now, that is a extremely simple plot breakdown for this movie. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, but I really did enjoy the storyline for this movie. It has a really unique family dynamic. I thought that all the acting performances were fantastic. This movie really delivers on the special effects, so it has all the 80s goodness. There's a really awesome monster cat, so that's really cool. Overall, I really did enjoy this movie. It was a lot of fun. October 31st, 2019, Halloween, I watched Tales of Halloween. And this is basically a horror movie anthology that is set up with 10 different episodes. And at the end of the movie, it ties all the episodes together. The movie opens up with narration by Adrienne Barbeau. She is a radio DJ, so it automatically made me think of The Fog, and it was really cool how she would speak in between each episode. This movie is loaded with horror movie icons and just people who have been involved in horror movies in general. It was nice to see each one. Episode number 1 is called Sweet Tooth, and it's basically about a young boy who has just come back home from trick-or-treating. He is scarfing down his Halloween candy. His babysitter and her boyfriend tell him the gruesome story of Sweet Tooth. This was just a really awesome opening episode and definitely one of my favorites. Episode number 2 is The Night Billy Raised Hell. And this is basically a story about a young boy named Billy who's going trick-or-treating with his sister and her boyfriend. They trick him into going to the neighbor's house, an old man who does not participate in Halloween. Once he comes out, he throws a pumpkin at the sister and the boyfriend, chasing them off. Billy comes inside and discovers his neighbor is a demon who is going to show him the true meaning of Halloween. This was another fantastic episode. Episode number 3 is called Trick, and this one is basically about a group of friends who are celebrating Halloween together by drinking and watching horror movies. They are taking turns with answering the door for the trick-or-treaters. One of the guys answers the door and is stabbed by one of the trick-or-treaters. This storyline is basically about the trick-or-treaters turning on the adults. And I thought this episode was decent, but it definitely wasn't one of my favorites. Episode number 4 is The Weak and the Wicked, and this is basically a storyline about 3 bullies who pick on anyone who comes across their path. One boy in particular has come back for revenge, and we do learn that he has summoned a revenge demon. There's a little bit more to it, but overall I thought this episode was okay. It was definitely average at best. Episode number 5 is Grim Grinning Ghost. And this is basically about a random looking group of friends that have gotten together for Halloween to tell ghost stories, more or less. And the last story was Grim Grinning Ghost. After the ghost stories, the friends separate. One girl drives home alone, her car stalls, and she's walking home along the rest of the way. She starts to hear weird noises behind her. She was told not to turn around and look. I'm not really a big fan of this episode. It was okay, but nothing really special at all for me. Episode number 6 is called Ding Dong, And this is basically about a demon who really wants a child and her partner cannot give her one. And each time the doorbell rings for the trick-or-treaters, they perform the same gag over and over again. But considering we know that this is a demon, she intends on getting a child. This is another episode that I only thought was average and nothing really special in my opinion. Episode number 7 is This Means War, and this is basically an episode about an older man who has always put up the same Halloween display year after year. His new neighbors have a updated way of celebrating Halloween with updated Halloween decorations. This story basically becomes a war on who has the better Halloween decorations. There's actually not really a lot to it, but I thought it was a pretty fun episode. Episode number 8 is Friday the 31st, and oh man, this is definitely my favorite episode on this anthology. It's basically a slasher movie setup like Friday the 13th, to where you have a masked killer chasing the final girl, but it becomes so much more, and you have to see it to believe it. There's so much blood and gore, it's just fantastic. Definitely my favorite on this anthology. Episode number 9 is The Ransom of Rusty Rex, and this is another episode that I really enjoyed. It's basically about 2 kidnappers who kidnap a child that they cannot get rid of. Each time the kidnappers feel like they have the upper hand and they are free from Rusty Rex, he returns to torment them once again. Another really fun episode. Episode number 10 is called Bad Seed. And this one is basically about a man who is carving a jack-o'-lantern. He considers it to be his masterpiece. The jack-o'-lantern comes to life, bites off his head. This is the story that ties all the stories together. Overall, this was a fun and entertaining anthology. Even though a few of the episodes are pretty average, it all comes together nicely to be a really awesome anthology to watch for Halloween. Okay, so there you have it. I hope you all have enjoyed this series of my 31 Days of Horror for October. Please like, subscribe, comment below, let me know what you think about this video, and I would like to thank you all for watching.